This lesson is going to be about the sequence in which I teach chords and some little tricks to keep in mind. Okay, so as I said in the intro, I will run through the sequence of chords I teach and in the order in which I teach them. I start with C, A minor, F. Then F to G7. I have them put their fingers on the F chord. Then they move their tummy tall from the 4th string to the 3rd string, and they just spin their hand a wee bit, and they have room to get their ring finger so that they can shape the G7 chord. So their anchor finger is their first finger. Okay, F to G7. Then F to D minor. And to back up a little, there are a million songs that can be played with C, A minor, F, and G7. Stand By Me is the most popular one, but there are many. But then when you add D minor, now you're getting into songs like Four Strong Winds. Some of that D minor, G7 to C is a very common pattern in many songs. It's often used. That's a 2-5-1 progression, which is often used. And if you don't understand 2-5-1, don't worry about it. So that's, if you've got 12 classes, you're going to do 12 classes of ukulele for the unit. That's about as far as you're going to get. And maybe touch on a little tab, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. Like getting them playing as much as possible, and teaching them things like beat and rhythm and ostinato and the concept of harmony. All of those concepts can be taught in 12 classes, staying in the key of C. Before moving into, and the next key I do is the key of G. Before moving into that, I like to prepare it. So when you're in the key of C, you have a lot of F, D minor, F, G7. This finger is your anchor finger. That's really important. You have that certain feel. When you get into the key of G, you have a different G. When you make the G chord, then D7, first you take your ring finger off, you've got E minor 7. But then E minor 7, if you move each finger up a string, you've got D7. So it's this feeling, G, E minor 7, D7. This is a shape that you use a lot in the key of G. And so you can talk about that. And then the C chord, because you're going to have, when you go into a new key, you're going to have the 1 chord, which is G, G, A, B, C is number 4, and D is number 5. And the 6th chord will be an E minor. E minor 7 works. And when they're just getting started, the E minor chord is a little tricky. It's kind of a staircase. So if they do E minor 7 from G, it's much more achievable initially, and frustration doesn't set in for some of those. So to recap, the chord sequence: C, A minor, F, G7, and D minor. And then, once you have A minor, F, D minor, they all, a lot of chords will stem from that. And it's easy for them to find them so that they can do it without always looking at their fingers. Then, when you move into the key of G, if you get there, you're going to have that next pattern. G is the 1 chord. G, A, B, C is 4, D7 is 5, and then E minor or E minor 7 is the 6th chord. So then you've got even more songs. Students will say, why do we need to learn another key? Well, sometimes the singing voice doesn't work well. You know, the song is a little too high to sing in the key of C, but if you move it down into the key of G, a fourth lower, then it fits the voice a little better. And you may find that within your classroom, some kids sing better with the key of C and some kids sing better in the key of G for certain songs, because remember, it shifts from song to song. So moving to the key of G, something that I am really careful about is when we work on a new chord, I try to put it in a prominent position in the song, or I try to find a song in which that is the only new chord. So for example, Can't Buy Me Love by the Beatles, you can do that in the key of C, but it's going to have an E minor 7 chord, which is great because then they know the other chords, so then they can focus on learning or practicing and reinforcing that E minor 7. So then before you even get to the key of G, you are preparing them for some of the new chords to come. And when you do that, you will find that the shift into the new key, using the key of G as a base, they find that it's a much smoother transition for them. Stepwise progression, a new chord in a prominent position in a song, and do it for 2 or 3, a couple of classes. Spend some time on it for a couple of classes before you move totally into the key of G. But finding a song, that's the trick, is to find a song where the new key is only, or that new chord is the only new chord in the song. Now, something else that is to consider is ear training and the concept of harmony. Because students, if you work with them well, that they will learn to predict. Their ears will tell them when to predict when they have to change a chord. So if you're playing, so what I do is sing Twinkle, 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 Little Star. But I ask them to tell me when to change chords. Twinkle, twinkle, that's not the right chord. Little star. So just singing that and having them tell you when to change and whether the chord you chose was the right one or not, they're using their ear and they can hear that the singing note fits in the chord that you're playing. And that's the concept of harmony. And that works. I did that with grade 5s, and they could understand the importance of having that note fit into the chord. So if you do some of that with children when you're waiting for some of them to get organized or whatever, and you do a little bit of that, you'll find very quickly they start to use their ear and trust their ear a little bit as to when to change chords, and they can predict that a change is coming, and then they're ready for it. So a couple of tips to help you out. Hope that works. Take care.